Natural disasters, particularly floods, represent a profound and enduring challenge that transcends geographical, cultural, and temporal boundaries, affecting communities worldwide with varying degrees of severity and frequency. Floods characterized by the inundation of land that is typically dry are among the most common and devastating natural disasters, claiming thousands of lives and causing extensive damage to infrastructure, economies, and ecosystems each year. The causes of floods are diverse and multifaceted, ranging from heavy rainfall and snowmelt to storm surges, dam failures, and coastal inundation. Climate change has further exacerbated the risk and impact of floods, with rising global temperatures leading to more frequent and intense extreme weather events, altered precipitation patterns, and rising sea levels. As a result, vulnerable communities, particularly those in low-lying coastal areas, river deltas, and urban centers, face an ever-increasing threat from floods and their associated hazards. Throughout history, floods have played a prominent role in shaping human societies and landscapes, often leaving a lasting imprint on cultural narratives, historical records, and collective memory. In ancient civilizations such as those along the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, and Indus rivers, floods were both feared and revered, seen as both a source of fertility in destruction. The annual flooding of the Nile, for example, played a crucial role in sustaining agriculture in ancient Egypt, while also posing significant risks to settlements located along its banks. Similarly, the Mesopotamian floodplain, known as the cradle of civilization, experienced periodic floods that enriched the soil and supported thriving agricultural communities, but also brought devastation and hardship. In more recent history, floods have continued to shape human societies and landscapes with major events, such as the Great Flood of 1927 in the United States, which inundated vast areas of the Mississippi River Basin and displaced hundreds of thousands of people, leaving an indelible mark on the region's history and culture. The consequences of floods are far-reaching and multifaceted, encompassing a wide range of social, economic, environmental, and public health impacts. Loss of life is perhaps the most immediate and tragic outcome of floods, with thousands of people perishing in major flood events each year. The displacement of populations is another significant impact, as people are forced to flee their homes and seek refuge in makeshift shelters or evacuation centers, often with limited access to basic necessities such as clean water, food, and healthcare. Economic losses stemming from damage to infrastructure, housing, agriculture, and businesses can be staggering, with estimates of the global economic cost of floods running into the billions of dollars annually. Environmental degradation is yet another consequence, as floods can lead to soil erosion, water contamination, habitat destruction, and loss of biodiversity, posing long-term risks to ecosystems and ecological resilience. Efforts to mitigate the impacts of floods and improve resilience to such disasters are multifaceted and complex, encompassing a range of strategies and interventions at local, national, and international levels. One key approach is land use, planning and zoning regulations, which aim to limit development in flood-prone areas and promote sustainable land management practices that reduce the risk of flooding. This may involve measures such as the creation of buffer zones along rivers and coastlines, the restoration of wetlands and natural floodplains, and the implementation of building codes and standards that require flood-resistant construction techniques. Investing in resilient infrastructure, such as flood barriers, levees, and drainage systems, can help protect vulnerable communities from the worst effects of flooding, while enhancing early warning systems and improving communication channels can enable timely evacuation and emergency response efforts. In addition to these structural measures, non-structural approaches such as disaster preparedness, risk reduction, and community-based adaptation initiatives are also crucial for building resilience to floods and enhancing the capacity of communities to cope with and recover from disaster events. This may involve raising awareness about flood risks and preparedness measures, providing training and resources for emergency response and evacuation procedures, and fostering community cohesion and solidarity to support those affected by floods. Nature-based solutions such as wetland restoration, reforestation, and sustainable land management practices can also play a key role in reducing the risk of floods and their impacts on both human communities and natural ecosystems. By enhancing natural water retention, flood mitigation functions. Despite these efforts, the challenge of managing floods remains daunting, particularly in the face of ongoing climate change, rapid urbanization, and socioeconomic inequalities that exacerbate vulnerability to disaster events. As the global population continues to grow and more people settle in flood-prone areas, the need for proactive and coordinated action becomes increasingly urgent. Building resilience to floods requires a holistic and integrated approach that addresses the root causes of vulnerability, including poverty, inequality, and unsustainable development practices, while promoting inclusive and participatory decision-making processes that empower communities to take ownership of their own resilience-building efforts. By working together across sectors and scales, we can hope to reduce the risk and minimize the devastating impacts of floods on people and planet alike, ensuring a more sustainable and resilient future for all.